Einen wunderschönen guten Abend, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren. Es ist früher Morgen in den Vereinigten Staaten, wo 3 unserer Gesprächspartner jetzt sitzen. Und so wie Sie es gewohnt sind, darf ich dann als derjenige, der am Abend unterwegs ist, schon meinen geistigen Getränken nachgehen, während die anderen sich mit Kaffee amüsieren oder mit anderen gesunden Dingen. Now switching to good old English, I'm very pleased to welcome a fantastic chap I had the pleasure to meet yesterday up front, Volker Hildebrand, who is our guest today. And joining with Tom and Marshall, as you are expecting it, we are having a fantastic hour up front, where we would like to make a journey through the history and perspectives, history of CRM, CX development, one-to-one marketing. And I was fascinated to find out that Volker has written his doctorate graduation on a topic which is very thrilling, most exciting, and that his doctor father, his professor, was here in Frankfurt area and then moved to Kassel, which is a bit to the north. Why is that fascinating? Because Volker has gone through a long, long way in the development of the CRM history, from database marketing to the CX experience. And that's really cool and fascinating. Now, the floor is yours, Volker, to introduce yourself and pick up some of my, let's say, statements and place them in the proper way, support them, and correct them if I'm wrong.
No, I think it's right. Yeah, I started my career in the academic world at the University of Frankfurt. And was I was focused on how to use information technology in marketing and sales at that time, and that was in the 90s. And the term CRM didn't exist back then. There were terminology around database marketing, computer-aided selling, which then transformed into kind of Salesforce automation. And yeah, my PhD thesis was about personalization, believe it or not, in marketing and sales. So it was way ahead of my time, I guess.
And it's what was personalization in the 80s? Just getting a name out of a database.
Well, I mean, personalization back then was because until you had some data about your customers, there was only mass marketing back then, pretty much. And I would say the only kind of industries or companies who started to look at their customer relationships more from an individual relationship perspective were mail order catalog vendors. They had databases for their direct, remember there was direct marketing, which was opposite of regular marketing, because you basically sent something via snail mail back then directly to the customer. And I think those were the pioneers. Insurance companies also were among the first who were thinking about things like customer lifetime value. The mail order companies did things like RFMR, recency frequency monitor ratio kind of analytics. It was very analytics driven. There wasn't really marketing automation that would automatically do something based on the data. It was still a separate process. You would look at the data, analyze it, and then look at the spreadsheets, and then you would take some action.
Technology for automating it wasn't yet there.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't there. It was primarily kind of data and analytics driven back then.
Yeah.
But I actually think going, if we think about history of CRM, I think the first technology breakthrough was actually automatic call distribution, which became widely available in the 80s already. So if you think about customer service, that was probably the first area that was at least partially automated, if you will, with 1-800 numbers, automatic call distribution. I think these things came together, and then if you didn't really have a customer service software for the call center agents, so they would go to the billing system or the order management system, many times still green screen, in order to find your order. If you want to cancel the order, or if you called and asked, where's my stuff? Or you had a question about billing or wanted to pay via phone. But yeah, I think that was sort of kind of the first CRM systems, if you want to define it more broadly. And then, like I said, database marketing, Salesforce automation, really in the 90s, in kind of the late 90s, e-commerce started as well. First companies, Intershop was one of the first vendors to actually try to make standard software for e-commerce. I noticed the other day they're actually still around.
They're still around, yeah. After they nearly crashed after the .com bust.
That's right. They nearly crashed. But yeah, they're still around. And that was also, by the way, when I joined SAP, and I became the first. First, I was in sales, selling Salesforce automation software, and then I became the product manager for SAP Internet Sales, which was an e-commerce solution from SAP. And
it was pretty good.
And it actually, after 4 years, we were a leader in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for e-commerce. So it was actually a pretty good product.
And it was pretty easy to set up even for rookies. I did that, the ISA, without knowing about it in a few days, just get it integrated into a CRM. Okay, it looked ugly, but it worked.
That is the name of the game. It's not to be shiny, but operative and deliver what you need for your customer, such as long if the parcels came through, top.
Yeah, make it work, then make it nice.
Yeah, and selling SFA of SAP, I do not envy you selling what we guys built at that time.
Well, but I have to say that it was probably one of the first products where we started to look also at the development process differently. Bernhard Neumann was the head of development for internet sales, and we were really well together, and he understood. And I guess it was probably one of the first products at SAP, if not the first product. It was the first Java product, actually. But it was also the first product, I believe, that was built kind of, back then, you would look at it backwards, was built from the UI first. We're really trying to figure out what's the user experience of a consumer on the website, and how does that need to look like, and then figure out all the plumbing. So that was a big change, because until then, software, at least at SAP, was built the other way around. Like make sure the order gets into the backend, into the ERP system. That was the most important thing. And I remember the first versions of internet sales still had SAP error messages pop up for the end consumer. with transaction codes and stuff in there, which obviously didn't mean anything to somebody who would want to buy something online. But yeah, it was that was an interesting time, and then obviously e-commerce became big in the 2000s, and CRM suites, right? Probably also with Siebel became very successful. Now all of a sudden it was sales and service and marketing. And it was probably also the first wave of consolidation in the market. There were some acquisitions. I mean, even SAP acquired Kiefer and Feidinger to get a mobile sales application. What was interesting though is back then e-commerce was not considered CRM really. In many places, although it should have been. I don't know why that was. Maybe it was because of the vendor landscape. None of the CRM vendors had an e-commerce product besides SAP in the early years.
Why
maybe
would you
that's
consider e-commerce CRM? Because I would consider it a channel. Those e-commerce.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's,
for that, but
yeah, as the question is, and I remember we used to have debates with also with Paul Greenberg around it, because Paul and I agreed that e-commerce should be part of CRM, right? It's about customer interaction and customer.
But he says it has 4 pillars, right? Or 3 pillars: sales, service, marketing.
It was kind of a separate thing. I mean, even at SAP initially, it was the organization was separate from the CRM group.
Yeah.
And then only later the two merged. Yeah, so that was, it was really kind of Siebel probably defined CRM, which also tells us it was all was still on premise, and then came the big kind of transition to cloud solutions with Salesforce as probably a main driver in that transition, I guess.
From that early stage, I found also that there were some smaller providers which were only known in the US, like Upshot or others, which were, let's say, early pioneers, but they didn't have a full suite. But they were not appropriate to run in Germany because the infrastructure was at these ages ago as lousy as it is still today, such as whereas in the States, you had around the corner high-speed internets, which is at a standard level for low budget. When I was at the DCI show in New York, just before these planes crashed into some towers, this was a running gag that they showed us modems and communication items in hardware, which made you getting a speed which several cities nowadays in Germany do not have. Yeah, and this for me was really the story. The moment you have the infrastructure, then you can do cloud. But as long as you do not have the infrastructure in a country, you better stay client server. And this was at that time the sentence for cloud software in Germany. Wait till the infrastructure is there. Yeah, and it was thrilling to see because your example. If you see Salesforce and IBM did a join up, or in that phase it was not Salesforce, it was Siebel and IBM, which had quite a classy product, which was solely cloud available. Yeah? And I found this quite fascinating, such as one of the next moves from my perspective was then that SAP started with a cloud-only product aside of the client-server product. And this was a sexy product.
Which one? Well, it took quite some time, and I think I think SAP was a little slow, and this gave Salesforce the opportunity to really conquer that market. And also, I think what the other thing besides the pure kind of cloud versus on-premise aspect, I think the other thing that changed with the software as a service or cloud approach was because you didn't need the infrastructure, it wasn't necessarily an IT purchase anymore. So I think this is really where, I mean, you always had kind of the head of sales or head of marketing involved in sales or marketing software purchases. But at the end of the day, it was the CIO who had the budget, who made the ultimate decision. But in most cases, but once it was on premise and you didn't need to buy IT infrastructure for it, and it wasn't an upfront, even the software license wasn't an upfront investment anymore. It was pay as you go. That made it really easy, especially for sales leaders, to just swipe their credit card and buy some Salesforce licenses, or the CMO buy some marketing software.
Some of the earliest successes came from individuals in a sales team deciding this is a tool that's going to help me sell better.
Right.
They get it.
Exactly.
Their numbers improve. Other people see it. And it grows from there. It's the classic foot in the door.
Yeah. And
you bought
from the shadow IT, right?
You bought from expenses your first software for selling because you could afford it and you could do it. And you gave a damn on the people around in IT, which didn't deliver you anything which was useful for you. And so you created your shadow world. Hallelujah. And now it was no longer Excel fiddling, but it was something which had sales in the name. And it was mentioned that your role is getting importance. Salesforce, and automation. Wow, cool.
Yeah,
which we did in the 90s.
Yeah. And as you were saying, it changed the way the money was spent. It wasn't capital expenses anymore, which generally required a lot more consideration. It was operational. It was coming out of OpEx. We'll do this and see how it goes.
Which created quite a backslash as well. So, which is, well, this shadow IT, unintegrated systems. So what, Volker, do you think triggered the change back to the new breed of suites that we are currently seeing?
I think two things came together. I think on the one side, customers were demanding it, and there were companies who, for example, had a Siebel suite implemented and wanted to have the same way of integration between their sales and service solution, maybe, or their sales and marketing solution that they used to have, because there obviously is an advantage if you can pass on the leads and the data from your marketing system and pass it on.
The idea,
of course, automation tool, and you don't want to do it in a nightly batch run or something. And so it was partially demand driven, but also on the supplier side, companies like Salesforce or also SAP. If you think about the first solution, it was sales on demand first, and they added service to it. What then eventually became Cloud for Customer. It was a way for the vendors to cross-sell and upsell, right? You get the foot in the door, like Salesforce, for example, by selling Salesforce automation, and then later on you wanted to sell marketing and service, and I think they did this pretty successful. it's and SAP did the same thing. We were selling Cloud for Customer primarily for Salesforce automation, and then later tried to convince the customer to also do service with it and get a few hundred or a few thousand service users on top of their existing sales users. So it was both demand driven as well as supplier driven. The other thing is why the suppliers were interested in also the advantage of a suite was always also a way to keep other new upcoming niche vendors at bay, if you will, right? You could always say, oh, that's not integrated. That I think helped those more established vendors, at least partially, to have that integration or CRM suite story versus, hey, we just do marketing automation or we just do this. But as we know today, a lot of these smaller vendors were still pretty successful, especially in the marketing space, right? And then a lot of them got acquired over time. Most of them, actually.
What does, in your eyes, differentiate the current thought of what a suite is from what we had back in, well, the early noughts of this century? Millennium, actually.
Well, I still believe that the on-premise CRM suites were actually true suites on a single platform for the most part. Siebel was one platform. SAP CRM was one platform. Now, if we look at cloud solutions today, they may be positioned as a suite or one platform, but Salesforce has, like, I don't know, 8 or 9 platforms. SAP has multiple platforms. The e-commerce is on a different platform than sales and service. Marketing is different. Same at Salesforce, different platforms for the marketing solution, the e-commerce solution. So I think there's more. There's still more plumbing kind of under the surface, and they're all trying to kind of build one platform, but it's hard if you have so many legacies and acquired companies to put everything on a single platform.
What's your definition of a platform then?
I don't know. It's more of a virtual platform, I guess.
Seriously, how do you define a platform? So I wouldn't disagree with the virtual part. But
I don't know. It's like everybody wants to be a platform player. I mean, even smaller vendors who just do customer data, they now call themselves an experience platform, or someone like Qualtrics all of a sudden is the experience management platform.
We just recently talked to a company that does test automation. They claim themselves as a CX player. So
yeah, it's
what should be a platform then? Let's try it the other way around.
I don't know. I'm not a technical person.
Well,
he's more about the big picture.
Well, what's a big picture platform then? from a go-to-market perspective,
it's a marketing message, and yeah, I think there is a lot of plumbing. I think the trend towards kind of things like microservices, make it open APIs, make it a little easier for things to work together. But the SIs out there are still making a ton of money because these things don't really work that well together out of the box.
Yeah.
Even from if you buy from the same company, right? It's
Sad but true.
That was the fascinating bullying point at the end of the day why Salesforce purchased Mulesoft, because they couldn't keep on and scope with the challenge, integrating with whatever is not on their platform.
Yeah.
And they goofed it so often, so brilliantly, that they got as expensive as hell. And they were upfront in the same area again, like all the bullshit they have told their potential customers about how bad SAP is performing in integrating. And at the sudden, the customer learned it the hard way that they are as goofies as they claim that the SAPs should be or would.
Yeah.
And surprise, with charming entrepreneurship in the SAP ecosystem and universe, there were always some smart people which managed to your convenience to get it up and running. And even if it was an intelligent automated batch communication at a certain level of speed, if you did not have a real-time integration,
even the real-time integration. Just take SAP as an example that we know fairly well. It takes a boatload of work to get this real-time integration up and running. Even in the old days, CRM middleware, plugging little customized systems together that should work out of the box, basically. Say, okay, transmit me a business partner, get me an account, get me an order, without adding additional fields. Even that took a boatload of money, right? And effort, hence money. And on the other hand, a Salesforce was easily able to demonstrate that than an SAP. So they demoed customers in sales pitches, hey, let's connect to your ERP test system. And we have been sitting on our back foot then, so no, we can't do that right now. So there must be a way towards that, right? So which probably is part of the platform, isn't it? How can that be evolved in a world where you do not necessarily, looking a bit forward, where you do not necessarily have everything built yourself? There are only very few companies who do that.
I think you probably none of the vendors really can, and because I think one of the trends that we've been seeing also from CRM to customer experience, if you think about it, makes the challenge even bigger, because now all of a sudden organizations understand that, supply chain is actually pretty relevant for customer experience. Order management can be pretty critical for positive customer experience, which means you actually need even more integration. So I think the way to go is more openness of the platforms and being able to connect and integrate in an easy way. Salesforce is not going to build a supply chain solution.
No, they're not.
At least I don't see it that way.
They'll try.
But then looking at that, how does that compute with, lost my track here, with the apparent inability to go there? So the vendors and many of their customers as well are still looking into pillars. How does that compute with getting the complete process into one picture? And how can that be achieved?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question. It was a little
convoluted
up on my side.
It was convoluted. So with many vendors as well as their clients still thinking in pillars, whereas the experience comes from, well, a horizontal process point of view, an integrated process. How can that be mitigated? Still convoluted?
I mean, I think in general, it will continue to be a challenge. If you look at many companies today, they still don't have a single view of their customers. Where you might think, well, that's not super hard to achieve. And many organizations are still struggling with that.
Good that you didn't say 360, but
Thank you very much for that.
yeah. By the way, why did you choose the term single view and not 360 view? I suspect it was a choice. Volker, who?
He wrote the book about CX experience, so he is in depth in the material. Hello, hello.
Hello. Volker looks.
Oops,
look
our
on
guest
that
is finished.
Yeah.
We didn't only lose Marshall.
Okay, I'm still here. I turned off my camera because there seemed to be some bandwidth issues.
Oh, good. So it's not just me.
I would just mention it in a polite way, such as if the kids are starting to surf, the bandwidth gets a challenge.
Well, apparently not only in Germany.
Yeah, no, we have pretty fast internet and lots of data here in the house, but yeah, it's right now somewhere there's an issue.
Yeah, well, I a while ago decided to go away from Wi-Fi to wired. that way I have dedicated bandwidth at least to the router. So the question that I originally had is how do you think one can overcome the challenge of customers as well as vendors still thinking pillar, whereas the experience really comes from, well, the overall process that needs to be more seamless, fast, and efficient.
Oops.
That's probably Salesforce pitching in here, trying to avoid us getting an answer to a question that they can't answer as well.
Das, Sven Eddike, richtig erkannt.
Now,
Unweg.
Yeah.
Damn
Aber
it, Mark, leave us in peace.
Oh, Sven. Hello, how are you? Good to see you, mate. Yeah, you remember Sven Eddix, Volker?
When he is on, he will remember.
Okay, he is gone for a while.
Completely.
Yeah, we had a fantastic prepared script for in questions for Volker. Such if he's back, I would love to learn about 2020 going on. What's happening there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Welcome back, my friend.
yeah,
Well, that never ends.
I try to reconnect, but it doesn't seem to be much better.
No.
Easy does it. Easy does it.
Yeah, well, need to live with it. Worst case, it's more important to hear you than to see you.
Which is right.
Not that you are ugly, but still.
No. You have a fantastic background. Everything's cool.
Yeah.
But what is honestly interesting is you have drawn a bit the line what stages we went through in the history of from CRM to CX and the personalization. What a word. on the one end is very important. The question for me is, where is it developing into? If you foresee the future, what are, from your perspective, the next trends?
History is easy. Now we're going to make you predict something.
Now you are making history.
What does your crystal
Well,
ball do?
I think there's two big, well, maybe three major trends. I think the focus on customer experience is going to continue, away from kind of beyond CRM, if you will, looking at the overall customer experience, which has other aspects, because at the end of the day, it's that's how organizations gain a competitive advantage. So they're trying to figure out how can we get a customer experience edge. Another trend, more from a technology perspective, is really, I think we're going to continue to see rapid rise of AI and machine learning continue. I mean, it's been going on for a while already, but first of all, it's improving. More and more organizations are adopting it, and they have more data as well, because, and this is kind of the third trend, because the digitalization, which has been accelerated because of the pandemic, provides a lot more data that you can then actually use for more AI and machine learning. And so at the end of the day, it's really about acceleration and automation of customer interaction and customer engagement. I think that's really something that we'll be seeing growing dramatically.
How will that materialize?
I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, the AI machine learning part, for sure, because that's going really into efficiency, and having the system do something for the user, as opposed to how we Germans say it, we are serving the system. Then machine learning driven algorithms actually make the system serve the user. This is one thing. And another thing that, from my perspective, might be discussed actually, is getting the systems where the users are. So right now, whatever we are using, we are logging into a system using that UI and nothing else, as opposed to, well, I'm here on the road. What I do have is my phone. I'm
Which
sitting
you're not
somewhere
supposed to use
where I am not logged into my CRM application and still would like to do my visit report, for example, without going to the UI of the system. It's kind of a work from anywhere thing. Yeah, work in Office while pulling CRM or system data. Work in social media while pulling system data means not go to the system, have the system come to you. This is something that I would like to see coming. I see few applications that can do that so far. Don't know what.
I would agree. I mean, this is looking at it from kind of the internal user perspective, and I agree with you. I think that's a valid point. Maybe it's going where commerce is going with a headless commerce concept, that you will have more applications that don't necessarily come with kind of a predefined UI, but organizations can have their own UI across multiple different applications, and then make the overall experience for the user experience more seamless. I don't know. Maybe that's something gonna happen. I'm not saying it's easy, or people just have to live with it. I guess.
You get your salary, so eat it. Yeah.
If that worked, then we wouldn't have the perennial issue that people aren't using their CRM systems enough. Here's your salary, use the system, but people are still reluctant to do it.
Yes, but is that really true outside of sales?
Fair question.
Because if you think about, the people in your call center and in your customer service organization, they're definitely using it because
it's not possible to do the job without it.
It's not possible to do the job. I think a lot of marketing people are using marketing solutions to really design campaigns, run campaigns, do analytics. I think they're using it. I'm sure sales ops people are using it. E-commerce obviously is being used every day because it's the end customer. Same for self-service. Or mobile, all the customer-facing applications, if you will, are being used. So I think the main area that really is still struggling, and I would agree there, is the sales organization. Maybe because there's the least value in it still for many salespeople, because they say it's more, I have to enter more data and spend more time entering data than what I really get out of it. I don't know. That's kind of my observation. And I'm not saying it's in every organization. I'm not saying Salesforce automation tools aren't improving. And they're helping probably with, evaluating leads, identifying the best leads to follow up on, giving some support, making recommendations. CPQ is probably also an area where users are using it more often because it actually helps them do work. Yeah, but the core opportunity pipeline management kind of thing provides very little support for the individual sales rep, if you think about it. I'm not saying it's not useful, but you can look at it in the morning for 15 minutes and you know what's going on. It's not something that you have to use all day long. Again, CPQ is a little different because you can't actually create a quote, and the system is helping you putting it together and make an offer and put the document together and do all the pricing, help you with configuring or putting bundles together. That's really a tool that's helpful. You do something and it does something for you. So I think these are probably the software applications that are used the most.
Okay, so now there are a couple of cows that are chased through the village right now, to literally translate a German word. So
cows or pigs?
I knew it was
well,
a pig.
it's actually pigs. No, I stick to cows. But anyways, let's agree on sheep. So there's a lot of talk about, well, whatever is a CDP. Yeah, there's lots of talk right now about, just to name another one, low code and no code. So do you see any impact of these technologies on the at least midterm future?
I don't think something like low-code, no-code is going to drive user adoption in the sales organization. It's definitely going to be helpful to, I don't necessarily want to call them system administrators, but business people basically to kind of do the settings and the whole setup of a solution and tweak it and make it easier to consume and maybe make it easier to work with other applications that you have. I think that's definitely a trend where it's where this will be helpful. Because at the end of the day, the more things the business can do without the need of calling the IT organization, the better, in my opinion. Especially also if you think about the younger generation. I mean, they're used to setting up their phone to download a new app and do all the settings and everything, and that will be so on the one hand side. They know how to do these things and they do them all the time, and it's probably going to be their expectation when they enter the workforce that the tools that they're using will function kind of in a similar way, I guess. And that's just so that's what I think where this whole kind of low code, no code is going, and it will help make things more, hopefully more user friendly. I mean, a lot of solutions, let's be honest, still suck from a usability perspective.
Will that improve through low code or no code?
Well, if it gets not the entire user experience, but if it allows a non-technical person to do a lot of the settings and kind of personalize the application for their use, I do think it's helpful. Does it solve all the usability issues? No. If the navigation sucks, the navigation sucks, right?
And you still have to find a user who's willing to make the effort to customize their environment.
No, I agree. But that's why I was saying, the younger generation, if I look at my kids, and one of them's in college already, they do that all the time. They do settings in their apps that they download and that they use. They create. I don't have a single playlist on my iPhone because it's too much effort for me. My son has like 50 playlists. He has a playlist for when he rides his truck. He has a playlist for skiing. He has a playlist for exercise. He has a playlist to chill out or whatever. So I think they're used to also invest some time in order to have a better experience with an application or a service later on.
So
I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, well, that's what it's about. That's what it's about. So who, looking at the current vendor landscape in general, so the global company landscape, who does get this personalization thing pretty good then? So, I mean, on one hand, yes, they are used to putting some effort into getting things personalized. On the other hand, it's not bad to have it personalized or to just already get a very good suggestion for personalization. So who does get that right in the current way? So, and who could improve? How?
I think everybody, all the vendors can improve, and then coming back to the personalization, I think there's two different things. One is personalization of the application and potentially some of the content for users, for employees, whether it's the sales rep or the customer service agent. I think that's one side of the house, and the other is personalization of content for the customer or the consumer. I think it's two different things. Also, I think in general, because I was talking about AI earlier, and that's kind of related because AI can help with personalized content, at least to some extent. But I think AI, and that's why I call it automate and accelerate the potential of AI. It's much bigger. There's so many areas where you can use AI. Let's just take customer service, for example. And I once put a slide together, and I think it had at least 20 different use cases for AI and machine learning in customer service.
Wow.
And just one example. So I don't recall all of them, but you can use AI machine learning, for example, in field service to optimize the scheduling and optimize travel time of the field service technicians, etc. And reduce the wait time for customers, reduce the cost. So that's a very narrow, clearly defined area. It has nothing to do with personalization or hyper personalization. It's an optimization thing. Ticket categorization. So if you get service requests that come in, you can use AI just to categorize it. Is it a technical question? Is it a billing question? Is it related to the order? And maybe if it's related to the order, you can even identify which order it is. So there's areas there. Next best action, kind of based on, okay, now you've identified what's the issue or the situation. What are potential solutions? And again, these are kind of personalized recommendations based on service history data. So that's a huge area. Chatbots is a big area. I think they've been a little overhyped, but we're seeing more and more of them, and they're getting better and better. So that's a huge area. And like I said, there's at least 20 different things. Some of it is content related. Some of it is automation of either processes or automation of the customer interaction or partial interaction. Yeah, these are all, you can use AI for, we were talking about scheduling earlier. You can also use it in call centers for the staffing of your call center at specific times. How many people do you actually need to have on a particular day at a particular time? AI can help with that. Workflows. Workflows used to be rule-based. If you have a service ticket, if a service ticket comes in, then you do this, and then if A go this way, if B go that way, etc. And then you had all these flow charts for workflows, and workflow engines were primarily rule-based engines. I can see AI replacing a lot of these rule-based workflows simply by learning and improving what is the next step, and automatically identifying what's the best next step, as opposed to follow a strict rule which somebody made up, right? Maybe even labeled it best practice, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's best practice. We know of a lot of service processes that actually create kind of a closed loop, and is never ending, and the customer is wondering why he's not getting any response. And organizations are looking at it, and yeah, things are happening, but it's an endless loop, not going anywhere. These things happen with rule-based workflows, or can happen. And so, yeah, those are all different things. And we were just talking about service, and then the whole voice, right? Natural language processing is at the end of the day, it's also AI based, and it's going to be huge, in my opinion.
This is the reason why Microsoft invested some $20 billion in Nuance and all what they had on stack. And this is a step forward, because since 2013, I'm in that speech recognition and speech to text, and in the integration in CRM systems. And I was wondering, when somebody comes to the point that he invests in Nuance, because they are, to my liking, in a certain dimension far ahead of the competition. And now it came true. And as they are now to be an integrated part of Microsoft, I think there's a big step forward for conversational AI, and for speech recognition, and for those ideas and visions, such as you order like the cookie eaters, which handle their smartphones like they want to eat a cookie, and they talk into it and get all their stuff done, ordered from Amazon or their favorite vendor, or even that they order by voice something from their 7-Eleven and collect it later on. Yeah.
Now I want cookies.
But by the way, the fun stuff with that one will be that if that what is right, what I read, is that will spell doom for Apple, because Nuance is behind Siri. that will be funny. I mean, they are not exactly.
So is it really is Nuance technology behind Siri? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that as well. So I just yesterday read about that. So
it's a fact. The inventor, or the chap who at that time was working at Apple, had what is it, the proper political correct statement, an unhealthy disagreement with his bosses. And the further development of Siri was not so in his liking. So he went to Nuance, and spent some more days and times there at head of development. So funny enough, there is a lot of stuff happening in getting these people which are in the core technology on the market, and they drive things forward. One day or another, it's like in the big family, you meet again.
Yeah. That's true.
And it's fascinating. If you see, for instance, there is a chap I know quite for a long time, over 20 years, from Epiphany to Hybris to Signavio, and always where he is going, he is bought by SAP. He can't get rid of SAP.
As the hour is coming up, so out of all these topics that we have, excuse me, that we have talked about, that you have foreseen, which one do you think is well, apart from AI, apart from AI, which one is the most likely one to give real benefit to CX? And as I said, AI, machine learning are out here.
Personally, I think AI, machine learning are the biggest ones.
That's why I put it out.
Other than that, yeah, because it will be everywhere. That's what I try to illustrate with some of the examples in customer service, and it's not like one AI engine that powers all of service. It's here, it's there, it does this, it does that, and that's why I think it will have the biggest impacts, because you can leverage in so many different places. I think the other thing still is the whole, for the lack of a better word, digitalization. It will continue, and AI will help with that. Customers will demand it. There is still a lot of companies that are behind despite the pandemic. If they survive, they will have to catch up, in my opinion. And I always quote my daughter, who many years ago, I don't know, 6 years ago or something, said, why would I call someone?
Yeah.
And what she meant was, if there's a problem with something, whether she ordered something online or customer service issue, why is there a need to call someone? There must be, in her mind, there must be an easier way to deal with it, right? If I want to return something, I do it in the app where I ordered it. If I want to know where my stuff is, there should be a button to track my order if I have a question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's gonna accelerate. Will the phone go away entirely? No, of course not. But a lot more will be digital, and there will be, there must be easier ways, more convenient, fast, reliable, and relevant. Coming down to the 4 pillars.
Reliable. That's cool. Yeah.
Okay. From my perspective, this was a great ending, especially with those 4 words that finally came. I was surprised that you didn't bring them forward earlier. We can close with Sven. You still remember Sven? So we can close with Sven's words. I think that sums it up as well. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Thanks to Sven as well as Michael to pitch in and give their thoughts as well. And well, we'll see you soon again.
All right. Thanks for having me.
No need for you to log off now.
Yeah. And I hope my camera is working better next week.
But we'll go offline